Hey, what's up? It's Chris from ChrisBeatCancer.com, and today I've got another awesome interview. This is Megan, Sharrow, and her mom, Maria. They live in New Jersey, and Megan has an incredible cancer healing story that I found out about, I guess it was about a month ago, and I reached out to Megan and begged her to let me interview her, and she said yes. And so this is just an amazing one. I'm super pumped about this. So Megan and Maria, thank you for being on this video call.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, Chris.
So let's start, I guess, back, was this 4 years ago?
Was it 4?
4 years ago. 2009.
2009. And Megan, you were 14?
I was
13.
13 at the time.
About to, yeah, this was during the summer. So it was 3 months before she turned 14.
Mm-hmm.
She was just about to start high school.
And what was happening? Were you having headaches?
What was happening was I was taking some summer courses, and I found myself one day I had double vision, the kind of double vision you get if you cross your eyes, and they got stuck that way.
And it was a few days after she had her meningitis vaccination.
Yeah, which she's very suspicious
I'm
of.
very suspicious about.
But
I would be too.
it was just really unfortunate that I was having double vision while taking a math course over the summer and a biology course, because it's quite difficult to do computations when you're seeing double. And it got to a point where I said, Mom, I'm not really doing well in my classes anymore because I'm seeing double, so I think you need to take me to a doctor. I don't think this is normal.
Well, she thought she needed eyeglasses, actually. So what I did was I made an appointment with an ophthalmologist for maybe like 2 days later. We went after school, and we never came home because he did the examination, and he noticed that your optic nerve was inflamed. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The ophthalmologist noticed my optic nerve was inflamed, and he said, it might not be a big deal, but there's a chance that it might be, so I want you to go to the hospital for a CAT scan just to make sure everything's okay. And once I got in there for the CAT scan, they were like, your brain is really inflamed.
Well, they didn't tell her that.
Well, she
knew nothing. I mean, they really...
They did the thing, you know how you watch the medical shows, and they take a child's parent into another room, and you're watching there, and you're watching the show, you're like, oh my God, it's going to be so bad. It was like I was in one of the shows. I was sitting in the hospital room in the ER, and they were like, Mrs. Sharrow, could you please come with us in another room? And I'm like, oh no, I know what's coming. It's going to be bad. It's either cancer or I'm going to die or something. So when they finally came out and told me, you have a mass in your brain, we can't determine the size of it because of the amount of inflammation in your brain. I'm like, I'm not surprised that's how serious it is. You did the thing where you took my mom into another room.
And she had just come from school, so she had her biology book with her, and they had just learned about cancer. They literally had just learned, like, the day before.
And so in the ER, I was studying, what are they telling me? Does it match up to what's in the book?
So I had them tell her what they really wanted to tell me, because I said she'll understand it more than I will. So I want her to make the decisions because I felt she was mature enough that I could work with her to try to figure out how we're going to, what we're going to do. Because they were trying to convince me that they needed an ambulance to come pick her up, that I couldn't drive her to the next hospital, because they didn't have the facilities to do an MRI. And they were pretty sure that because what happens when you have double vision, the next thing that it goes to is respiratory. So they needed to make sure they had a complete staff in this ambulance that looked like a trailer to revive her, because they were worried that she was going to die.
Wow.
That's how serious it was.
They suspected that if I were to have another symptom, it would be something along the lines of I would stop breathing.
Right.
So
they had to take precautions just
when
to
they
be
put
sure.
me in an ambulance to take me to a hospital that was more qualified to deal with what I had,
right.
I had a respiratory therapist in there. And I was chatting up all the people in the ambulance with me, and I'm like, so you're a respiratory therapist, right? And the woman's like, yes, I'm a respiratory therapist. I'm like, what exactly is your job? She says, well, I can revive people if they stop breathing. I'm like, is anyone else in the ambulance planning on not breathing? Because I'm not.
Right. So, Mom, were you freaking out at this point?
Inside I was, but on the outside, absolutely not. Because I had to make sure I kept everything positive and made sure we're all laughing, telling jokes. But in the inside, I was dying. It was really scary.
I was only freaking out at one point. As soon as they told me I had a mass in my brain, you know the medical show House MD? Mm. I had seen an episode where someone had a brain surgery where they were awake. And so the first thing I asked them, once they told me you have a mass in your brain, I'm like, okay, will I have to have surgery? And they said, yes, most likely you will. And I said, will I have to be awake? And they said, given the location of your brain that your mass is in, no. And I'm like, whew, okay, I can deal with this whole cancer thing now, even though I didn't know it was cancer yet.
So what? So you had the MRI. Did they find what did they find out?
What would happen was, because it was now at this point it's late at night, so they had to literally wake up the guy out of bed to come back to the hospital to do an emergency MRI, and they were prepping him for surgery, emergency surgery, just in case. So they did the emergency MRI, and they felt that they could wait one day. They didn't have to drag everybody out of bed, for emergency surgery. They figured it would be all right. She's in the hospital. They have the facilities there. They could, hold off.
And what they had done was they put me on steroids to reduce the inflammation right away.
Right.
And my double vision went away within maybe an hour of being on the steroids.
Right.
So that made them feel more comfortable with waiting a day for the surgery.
That's right. So then the next day, now they had a chance to talk to the surgeon. They had the MRI results, and now they were able to figure out what they were going to do. So the surgeon was very confident. She said according to the MRI, there were some really good margins. She can get in there, get the whole tumor out, and be done.
How big was it?
It was the size of a plum, right?
It was the size of a juicy plum. They were always very specific in including.
Jeez, that's big.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. Well, this is why they were worried. Well, in the CAT scan, it was massive. I mean, I remember thinking, holy cow.
In the CAT scan, you couldn't tell the actual size of the tumor because of the inflammation around it. All they could see was that the entire right side of my brain was inflamed, and that there was a mass that they couldn't see the true size of in my right parietal lobe.
Right, because you didn't have the 3 dimensions that you do with the MRI. But anyway, so they said we have to do surgery. So we didn't know any better. I mean, remember, we hadn't even gone home.
Yeah.
I hadn't slept. So we just, at that point...
And I mean, we didn't know anything about natural forms of healing or anything like that at the time. So we thought, oh, there's a tumor or a mass? Oh, surgery. Well, yes, that's the right answer.
Actually, that's not totally true. I actually was, I did have some experience with a little bit of nutrition because my son, a few years earlier, he had really bad asthma. And I remember I went to a nutritionalist and she told me, take him off wheat, sugar, and dairy. And the moment I did that, his asthma went away and never returned. So I remember in the hospital, I remember thinking, okay, you know what? We're going to make some major changes now. So now what this means is... That
was amazing because that prepared you for this moment, didn't it?
It did prepare me. You know what else prepared me for this moment? The house we had just moved from, the owner of that house had died in the house of a brain cancer. And I got to know the wife really, really well. And she told me step by step what he had endured going through chemo and radiation. So I think that really prepared me.
Yeah, that's serendipitous. Absolutely.
Right. So anyway, so in the hospital, she has the brain surgery. And then they had to do another MRI. And they realized they didn't get it all out. And it's like a parent's worst nightmare. Like, what do you mean you didn't get it all out? What does this mean now? So then they convinced us that they should do a second surgery 6 days later. They said, we have the margins, the skull's been cut. This is a great time to go in there before the scar tissue. So Megan's like, you know what, that makes sense, sure. And the doctor assured us that she was going to be a little bit more aggressive, which meant that possibly Megan would never feel her toes ever again. But, if that means getting it all out, then so be it.
Being more aggressive, my surgeon risked the possibility of potential defects later on for me in life.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that she had told us about during the first surgery was that she could be blind for life because of the location of the tumor.
They have to tell you these are the possible risks. They told me it's possible that you could be paralyzed on the left side. Right. Could be temporary, could be permanent. And I'm like, let's not think about that.
So what she did have, here's what did happen. After the surgery, she lost all peripheral vision. And they weren't sure if that was ever going to come back. Luckily it did.
Which was not a big deal. To be honest, it was more funny than anything because if someone was walking up to me from the side, I couldn't see them until they were right up next to me.
And that happened that stayed with you for a while.
It stuck around, but they put me into physical and, what was the other kind of therapy?
I don't remember.
I don't know. They put me into a kind of vision therapy that helped to train my eyes again, and that seemed to put everything back to normal.
The other thing that happened, too, was she apparently developed a model's walk, which she didn't have before, which was pretty funny.
Coming out of surgery, going into physical therapy, I would walk putting one foot directly in front of the other, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until my physical therapist pointed it out to me. She said, look at the way your feet are moving, and I'm like, that seems a little strange.
Yeah. The other thing, too, right before she went to surgery, we decided to kind of punk the doctors. So, because, we were trying to maintain, everything being funny. So Megan would ask them this question. So, do you think that after this is all over, I'll be able to dance? And they would always say, of course you would.
I would say it so seriously. I would be like, after the surgery, do you think I'll be able to dance? And they would be like, oh, of course, little girl, you'll be able to dance. And I'd be like, well, that's good because I was never able to dance before.
And here's the thing, but since the surgery, she actually has learned how to dance.
That's great.
Yeah,
Ironically
enough, yeah.
So the second, did that happen, the second surgery?
Oh, yeah. So the second one happened, right? And they assured us now they were definitely going to get it all out. They were going to be as aggressive as possible, but without, doing some major damage.
Right, without a total lobotomy.
Right. So now they get it down to the size of a cherry.
Okay.
So we're still not there. And now they're like, okay, well, now we got to talk about chemo, radiation. But here was the problem. Now you're better at explaining this.
Because of the nature of my tumor, I had a glial neuronal tumor, which is made of a combination of glial and neural cells. And they had never really seen a tumor quite like mine before. They had seen similar types, but basically there was no straight-up treatment protocol. With certain kinds of cancer, they'll say, oh, this cancer, we know it. This is how you get treated for it.
Yep.
With mine, they really weren't sure.
Well, with one particular one, I forget which one, you could not treat it with chemo because then the other becomes chemo resistant.
So there's one way to treat glial cells, and there's another way to treat neural cells when they become cancerous. And so they weren't sure if they should try to treat it like it was made of glial cells or neural cells. Because it was made of both, they were in a state of confusion.
They knew that it was not going to get rid of it. This was not going to be a cure. They knew that. But they also couldn't give me a prognosis either because they had one other case of another patient, a young person, that they had on chemo radiation, and they weren't doing very well. So,
a cherry-sized tumor, for anybody that doesn't understand or know this, a cherry-sized tumor is a big deal. A tumor that is 1 millimeter in size, 1 millimeter, is 1 million cancer cells.
Wow.
1 centimeter is 1 billion cancer cells. 1 centimeter, right? That's about this big, is 1 billion cancer cells. So a cherry is like many billions of cancer cells.
So imagine the plum, the juicy plum.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah.
So now at this point, we start talking to St. Jude down in Memphis, Tennessee.
That's where I live.
Oh, okay. And because her situation was rare enough, they took her on as a patient. And they had scheduled a third surgery for 9/11/2009. When Megan found out about it, she said, absolutely not.
I said, there is no way I am having a third surgery that might not even be successful on 9/11 of all days.
Right.
Right.
So then they said, well, unfortunately, the surgeon is going away, and the next time that we can schedule this would be late October or late November. So I said, great, let's talk about coming down in November, late November, because I figured I needed those 3 months to change her diet. I changed her diet in the hospital because the foods that they brought for her to eat, they caused inflammation. And I said to the neurosurgeon, I said, why do you have her on steroids if they're not feeding her foods that are high in sugar? That makes no sense to me.
And what kind of food did they bring?
Oh, they were bringing like Jello
like
and
soda after
and
surgery.
soda. I mean, those kind of things. You can't, no.
Yeah.
So basically what happened was I radically changed her diet so that she was only eating single ingredient foods. Now, unfortunately, during that time period, she was still eating a lot of animal protein in her diet. So that was definitely feeding the disease, as I found out later.
And my diet was still relatively processed. It was
not really.
It wasn't as processed before, but still relatively processed, and I was still eating a really high-fat diet, and
no sugar,
and the fat sources were coming straight from animal proteins.
Right, right. So we would go every 3 months. We'd go for MRIs, and every 3 months it would still be growing. And so by January of 2010, St. Jude said to us, "We can't keep her on as a patient because we don't have a protocol."
And they never did. Did they do the third surgery or not?
They did not, because by the time we got there, my theory was correct. I wanted to wait and see what it did, because I figured, you know what? Why are we going to rush into things? Why not see what the cancer does? Maybe we can get it to slow down, because it was fast growing originally.
We actually left out a little piece of the story. You originally wanted to do this because the doctors that gave me my surgery, they originally wanted to treat me just like they had treated that other kid with a case similar to mine.
Right.
They said they wanted to treat me with chemotherapy and radiation,
right,
and a very aggressive form of chemotherapy as well. It was because we found St. Jude that they backed off and said, okay, they're handling your case now. You don't need to have this from us.
Because they were calling me every day. The actual oncologist was calling me every day saying, listen, you don't have a lot of time. You got to make a decision today because she's going to die. You got to get her into into treatment. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to let fear guide my decision making. The moment you let fear do that, then that's it. You're done. You can't make a rational decision.
Absolutely.
So I thought, you know what? If they're trying to scare me, why are they trying to scare me? What are they scared about? And I was certain that, you know what? Cancer is not a bad thing per se. So why treat it like a bad thing? Why not try to figure out how you got it, work backwards to undo it? And I really was convinced that if I worked on her immune system, that was the answer. That I honestly believe that. Everybody thought I was crazy, but I really believed that was it. Because I thought, how is it possible? If you're eating bad foods, of course you're going to get sick. But if you're eating good foods, of course you're going to get well. You're going to have a strong immune system. So that was really the thing. I tried to convince her from going from a terrible SAD diet. I mean, she made SAD look pretty healthy. I mean, she really ate.
I mean, you're the one who was taking me to Taco Bell.
Well, I mean, we were going everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised.
Your junk food diet. I know.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, exactly. But you get addicted to it, and then you just can't stop, I guess. Mm-hmm. But anyway, once we started to make the changes, we noticed a huge difference, especially when I read the book, The China Study. Yeah. I don't know. Do you know Megan Elizabeth?
Yes.
Okay, she's the one.
Hold that thought, because I just wanted to reinforce what you said, because it is so powerful and so true that a couple things is that the medical establishment wants to rush patients into treatment before they have time to turn around, like surgery, chemo, radiation, and they use fear to motivate you to take action, because fear is their greatest sales tool.
It is.
And a fear-based decision is always the wrong decision. And I've been saying this for years, and I just got so excited when I heard you say it, because it is true, right? You cannot make a good decision in fear. In fact, when you're afraid, your stress hormones actually turn off parts of your brain that think rationally. And stress hormones activate your lower brain, which is your reptilian brain, that is your fight or flight response brain, and it's not a critical, rational thought part of your brain. Mm-hmm. And so when you're afraid, worried, and stressed, you actually make bad decisions.
Mm-hmm. I believe that. Mm-hmm.
And you make irrational decisions. But so that is amazing. And then your instincts, the fact that you followed your instincts and you listened to your instincts, let's work backwards. Well, let's try to figure out what caused this. Let's radically change our diet and life, and see if we can promote healing in the body and restore the function of the immune system. I mean, this is the formula for healing.
It wasn't just food. It was everything else I looked at. I looked at what shampoos is she using.
Yeah.
What is she exposed to on a daily basis? I looked at everything, and I tried to remove, because if I couldn't figure out what the answer was, I figured, let me just keep removing things. And if I could keep removing things, maybe I can get it to slow down even more.
And I did the same thing, same exact thing. You got to clean up your entire life, your diet, get all the chemicals out of your house, out of your food. Absolutely. So you were talking about the China study.
Right.
Well, and the way we found the China study was we went to a raw vegan cafe called Arnold's Way in Lansdale, Pennsylvania.
Well, he's probably wondering how that happened, though, right?
Yeah, how'd you find Arnold?
Okay, so here's what happened. I was now starting to have a whole series of health issues myself, and I decided I was going to go raw. I had read a book. It was a gourmet raw book, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it. So I tried it, and within 2 weeks, I noticed huge results. So I said to her, you know what, maybe you should consider eating fruits and vegetables. And she thought I was insane. And I thought, okay, I need to find somebody that maybe can convince her. So after her MRI, I decided to take her to Arnold's Cafe, and I was hoping that he could convince her. And so what he did was he had her read through books out loud.
So I went to Arnold's Way, and he started to tell me a little bit about the raw vegan diet. I told him about my situation, and as soon as I told him what my diagnosis was, he said, oh, you have to be a raw vegan. You have to be a hardcore raw vegan, just fruits and vegetables. And I was like, show me the proof.
Well, actually, as soon as you walked in the door, he said, what'd you have for breakfast? Because he could tell she was having kidney issues from all the animal protein just by looking under her eyes. And he's like, I know you ate you've been having a lot of animal protein.
But so I said to Arnold, I said, I want to see the facts. I want to see the factual proof that this kind of diet can help in reversing illnesses. I'm not going to just rely on blind faith. I don't know who you are. You seem a little nuts. I don't know if I want to trust you. And he gave me book after book after book, and all the books were saying the same thing, which was that animal protein contributed to disease, and
well, it's very acidic.
And a plant-based vegan diet, like a plant-based diet, especially one high in fruits and vegetables, was the best way to go. And so I decided I would try out the whole raw vegan thing.
Right. And so what were the most influential books? You mentioned the China study. What were some of the others?
Well, definitely, I would say the China study. That if I had to pick one book, that it was Head and Shoulders.
Because that was the book we met Megan Elizabeth that first time we went to Arnold's Way Cafe, and she said if you can only read one book, have it be the China study.
She put that in my hand, and I always felt like that was.
And for me, coming from a science background, that was the scientific proof that I needed. I couldn't argue with such a large-scale scientific study.
Exactly. Because basically what the China study says, it doesn't say you can't have any animal protein. It just says if you limit it to 5%, you're fine. But the moment you go to 20% or higher, you are feeding disease, and you can turn cancer on and off. That's basically what it's saying. But in her case, since she already had the cancer, that meant zero. We can't have any of it.
We want to find the purest kind of diet possible. And Arnold said from the beginning, he said the purest kind of diet would be eating just raw fruits and vegetables. And he also said you have to eat 1 pound of greens a day, which at the time I was like, you are insane. There is no way I'm ever going to eat 1 pound of leafy greens every day.
Yeah.
Now she eats more than that.
Fast forward to now, I eat 2 pounds a day.
Yeah.
That's great. So what did the diet look like in the beginning? What were you eating in the beginning? Did you start juicing? Like, take me through what your daily diet was.
At the beginning? At the beginning, I was sort of a standard sort of gourmet raw vegan.
Well, and that was just kale chips. She was going to school, and her school was an hour away. Because remember, she had just started high school, a month after she had her last surgery. So she's dealing with this, and
I was eating a lot of high-fat foods because they were calorie-dense. They let me stay full for a long time, and it was easy. It was quick. We could buy them from the store. We didn't have to make them ourselves.
Well, we did make them ourselves from the dehydrator.
But that was eventually. So in the mornings, I might have a fruit smoothie, and then for lunch, I'd start eating more high-fat raw things. Like I would make a meal out of like packaged raw crackers or kale chips. Things like that.
And we do banana whips, too. You know, banana whips in the Champion juicer. Have you ever had that? It's like soft serve ice
Basically
cream.
just fruit-based ice cream made from bananas and other fruits.
Right.
So you have a Champion juicer.
Right.
Yeah, me too.
So she was going to school early in the morning, and then she was getting home very late at night because she was involved in performing arts, so she'd have to stay for rehearsals. So that's where the kale chips really came in handy, because she could get a lot of, nutrients. But the problem was she was getting like 90 grams of fat minimum per day. That's huge.
I was
And what was
getting more.
Tell me about your breakfast smoothie. People love details, and that's why I'm like
Okay.
trying to squeeze you for details. But
Sure.
tell me about the breakfast smoothie.
At the time, it would be mango, strawberry,
Pineapple,
and orange.
Yeah.
And orange, and any liquid base, or did you just put water or ice or something in there?
The fruit was the liquid base.
The fruit, we would use fresh mango, and then the other fruits would be frozen.
A lot of juicy fruits,
or fresh strawberries, whatever
Right.
was in season. Right, exactly. Because mangoes aren't always in season.
Whatever was in season, we would use fresh.
And
then
how were you getting your greens? Were you blending them up in smoothies, or were you just eating salads, or what?
First,
Spinach.
I was eating a bowl of plain spinach, and it was miserable. I really just hated every second of it. And then much later down the line, I decided to try out romaine lettuce. I happened to be at a gathering where there was a salad bar, and there was some romaine lettuce, and I thought, I might as well try it because I don't have access to spinach today. I tried it, and I thought, I bet I could eat a lot of this. And so fast forward to a little bit later, I started eating just romaine lettuce instead of the spinach, and I started eating a lot of it. I would eat like 3 to 6 heads of romaine lettuce. I would get a package and eat the whole thing. And now I eat 6 to 9 heads of romaine lettuce every day.
Every night. Also at school, didn't you used to bring a lot of bananas with you?
Well, our idea of a lot of bananas was maybe 3 bananas.
No, it was more than that. It was more than that. Remember, your friends would be thinking you're crazy.
That was later down the line, though.
Okay. Well, anyway, so on the high-fat raw diet, within 3 months, she went into remission. And then we never looked back. Then we went to Arnold complaining.
Amazing.
Believe it or not, we went to Arnold complaining. And he's like, oh, my God, you got to get rid of the fat. This is a low
He
fat.
had been telling me that from the beginning.
We weren't listening.
And so finally, I got rid of the nuts and seeds in my diet because I was just eating them at really high levels.
Wait, but hang on. Back up. So you went into remission on the high-fat raw diet.
You believe
did.
it?
So then why change it?
Because she was still getting symptoms. So she would get migraines. At that point, it was like once a month she would get migraines. And it was all based on stress. Also, her life in school was very, very stressful.
But I had already seen so many results. I knew that the whole raw vegan diet worked. So I thought, if I can get this many results from a diet that's not completely optimal, what can I do if I make my diet as clean as possible?
And it wasn't just the raw diet, too. I think this is really crucial. The diet by itself it won't do anything. You need a lot of other components with it. You need to get sun, because you need to be able to absorb these nutrients that you're getting into your body. You need some form of exercise. You need to have no stress in your life. Stress is absolutely a killer. I can't emphasize that enough. And that was the thing. That's why when we got that final MRI that said she was in remission, we took her out of school. We literally.
Actually, no. I came home one day. I came home and I said, I'm not going back to school.
But I said
it's.
I said, if your MRI doesn't show what we wanted to show, then absolutely. So she dropped out of high school. And then 2 months later, she enrolled in college at 15 years old. And at 17 years old, she graduated from college with the theater degree.
I graduated.
That's amazing. That is so awesome. I love it. Yeah. Well, and by the way, everything you said is right on. Diet, exercise, fresh air, sunshine, and getting rid of stress in your life. I mean, we know what causes cancer, and it's 4 things: environmental pollution, a poor diet, bad lifestyle habits like extreme exercise or lack of exercise, as well as alcohol, tobacco, and prescription drug use. And the 4th one is stress. That's it. I mean, those are the 4 causes, umbrella causes. And so what you did is exactly what every survivor that I know that has healed themselves either with or without, after conventional therapy treatments failed them or bypassing them altogether, they did exactly what you did and what I did.
And throughout the whole process, I learned how to make myself even healthier, how to find an even better lifestyle. So my diet only got cleaner and cleaner. Now I get most of my calories from fruit, and I'm only eating fruits and vegetables. I found for me, I don't feel as healthy when I'm eating nuts and seeds, and I get very addicted to them. So, I make a lot of fruit smoothies. I'll do a lot of mono meals now where I'm just eating one fruit at a time. So sometimes I might make, one thing I do now a lot is I'll make a mango smoothie with just mangoes. I'll put some fresh mangoes in, maybe 3 or 4, and then some frozen mango, which gives it the consistency of a regular kind of smoothie. And for dinner, I'll chop up, say, 6 to 9 heads of romaine lettuce, squeeze some lemons on it, and that's it. I keep it really simple, and I also try to find ways to incorporate a lot of variety into my diet. Before, when I was just starting, I stuck to the things that I knew. I stuck to, well, I like bananas, so I can eat bananas. I like mangoes, I'll eat those. I like strawberries. Whereas now I'm really eager to try new things. I recently tried durian. I love it. I love jackfruit. I'm trying all kinds of new things, feeling really great doing it.
And she goes through phases, too. So if it's cauliflower season, she'll eat a whole bunch of heads of cauliflower. Like, we went to the movies, and instead of getting popcorn, she brought a big head of cauliflower.
I brought a head of cauliflower.
And proceeded to eat it in front of everybody during the movie while they're eating their popcorn, which, caused a lot of people to look and ask questions.
Which is
cool.
actually really difficult because you have to break the head of cauliflower open with your hands, which makes like little pieces go flying everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that wasn't me, don't worry.
And then she'll go through like the English cucumber phase where I'll literally have to buy a case of English cucumbers and that'll last for like 3 days.
Sometimes we'll find things in the stores and I'll say, okay, I'm going to eat a whole bunch of this, and I just work on whatever's in season.
Yeah.
And then lately,
after the Woodstock Fruit Festival, you got into Doug Ram's meatballs, which were really veggie balls.
For a while, after we went to the Woodstock Fruit Festival this summer, which we loved, we learned how to make these raw vegan meatballs, which are basically just shredded vegetables packed into ball shapes and dehydrated. And I would put them in lettuce and eat them. And for a while, I was doing that. I just sort of moved back and forth with whatever's working for me at the time. Always sticking to fruits and vegetables, of course.
That's great. You ever eat raw sweet potato?
No.
I have eaten raw sweet potato in like a prepackaged raw food.
Really?
And in a raw cracker, and I loved it.
Here's something fun to try. Just buy a sweet potato and slice it up and just start eating it. It's so good. You'd be surprised at how good and how different. It doesn't taste anything like you'd expect, and it's delicious. I love eating raw sweet potatoes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and lately the thing that I've gotten really into is I was never very physically active. Even throughout my healing process, I was still only lightly active. I had a light amount of activity because I was heavily involved in performing arts. I had dance classes several times a week, so I was moving, but not as much as I now want to. Now I've gotten really into exercise, and I just feel great when I'm just being really physically active. And it's not a matter of like, I gotta go and exercise and get fit. It's just like, getting outside, exploring nature, going for a swim, going for a run, just having fun with it.
Movement is life.
She wants to do a triathlon.
Oh, no. I'm doing a triathlon.
In Kona.
Well, that's way down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, we've been suffering in the Northeast now for 3 years, 3 winters. So we decided this year we're not doing that anymore. So in 3 weeks, we are getting on a plane and we're going to Hawaii for the whole winter.
For the whole winter.
Yeah,
that's great.
I'm
a little jealous.
The only thing I'm going to miss, though, is one thing I've gotten into like crazy here as it's gotten colder is rock climbing. I have a great climbing gym nearby, and I tried to go 2 days in a row, yesterday and the day before. I can't do two days in a row. I can do every other day, but that's as much as I can do. I love it, though. And it's not like I'm going to a gym and exercising. It's just having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the most important thing, too, just moving your body in any way. One number I've heard that I think is pretty sound is 150 minutes a week really is the minimum ideal amount of exercise that anyone should get. It's just like 20 minutes a day. Anybody can do that.
Yeah, 150 minutes
a week?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 150 minutes a week. Yeah, 20 minutes a day, roughly. And, just moving, walking, running, riding your bike, jumping on a rebounder, rock climbing, dance classes, like everything you're doing. That's terrific. I love it. So here we are. We're is it 4 years now?
Yeah.
3 years, 4 years? You're 18 or 17?
She's 17, almost 18.
I'll be 18 on October 29th.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, so you were diagnosed when you were about to turn 14.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now you're about to turn 18. So yeah, you're coming up on your 4 year here, or you've probably already passed your 4 year.
We did. Actually, July, at the end of July, was the 4 year mark.
And
Yeah.
I've never been healthier.
No,
In
that's
some
true.
ways, I almost have to thank this whole getting cancer thing because it completely turned my life around.
Oh,
Without
yeah.
it, I would never have become the healthy person that I am today.
Yeah.
And one thing that I realized is I love like running, cycling, rock climbing. I don't think swimming. I really love them. Like I have a solid passion for them. And I don't think I ever would have discovered that if I hadn't been led down this road.
Well, forget that. Just eating healthy.
Just eating healthy. I mean, it's a pretty solid lifestyle change.
Well,
Yeah, cancer gives you a whole new zest for life, or it can. For some people, it can go very badly. But
it's a gift, though. It really is a gift.
After my diagnosis, I made a decision, which was I can't mess around with my life anymore.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I didn't know how much of my life I was going to have left. And so I decided whatever it is that I want to do in life, I'm going to do it now. No waiting around, no putting it off until later. I have to get it done, which is why I ended up going to college and getting a degree in theater because I decided, that's what I'm really passionate about. Why put it off? Just do it now. That's what I love.
did the cancer card help you?
Oh, yeah.
The
With
cancer
college
card
thing?
helps with everything.
Yeah. It
Because
does.
technically I was required to have a high school diploma to get into my local community college's theater department.
True.
Well,
okay.
you needed it to graduate. And long story short, I've graduated without the diploma. Because all you seem to have to say is, well, I had cancer.
Well,
and they go, oh, cancer. Oh,
No, but
my cousin had cancer. Oh, that's the worst.
Okay,
Oh,
but we didn't use that cancer card there because what happened was we just wanted her to take English, and they said she had to take the entrance exam. So when she took the entrance exam, they just assumed that she was of age, and they said, well, she's passed everything. So they said, yes, we'll matriculate her in theater, because I thought, well, why not ask for her to be matriculated? And so they just assumed. No one looked at the age and said, oh, she's only 15. And we didn't tell anybody. Once she got there, we didn't tell anybody about the cancer or about her age. It wasn't until she started doing rehearsals that she would bring like 10 bananas, and they'd wonder, like, why are you eating all these bananas, or why are you eating 6 things of romaine hearts?
It was cool, though. I would always bring extra bananas, and people would know that, and I would tell people, and they'd be like, hey, Megan, I need a snack. Do you have an extra banana? And I'd be like, do I have an extra banana?
Right.
Of course.
I got 2 bunches right here.
Yeah. And it was great because I started influencing other people as well. There were people in the shows that I was performing in the musicals, and they'd need to lose a little weight, and they're like, Megan's in pretty good shape, eating just fruits and vegetables. I think I'm going to try that. So I'd have people come up to me saying, hey, Megan, I'm eating a whole bunch of fruits and vegetables now and I lost 5 pounds. And I'd be like, that's great. And how do you feel? And they'd be like, feel pretty good.
And we'd have them come over, and I'd make them a green smoothie, too.
Mm-hmm.
Because just because Megan doesn't like it doesn't mean they wouldn't like it. So.
Oh, yeah, I don't do green smoothies. I can eat greens straight up. I can make massive salads, but I'm not a huge green smoothie fan.
Mom, what's your green smoothie?
My green smoothie is about a cup of water, several dates, like medjool dates, an apple, a pear, kale, some spinach, and then the rest are bananas. So depending on how thick I want it, it can be between like 3 bananas all the way up to like 5, sometimes even 6.
Yeah, 6 banana smoothie. That's serious.
Oh, it's very serious.
That's serious
you have to share that one with somebody.
There was one detail in the story that we kind of skipped over, but so at some point St. Jude sent you home, or said they couldn't treat you, or how did that all transpire?
So when we were going to go in November, we bought her a MacBook Pro. We assumed she was going to live there, because they said, originally they were going to do the surgery, but then because we waited so long, they said, you know what, since you're willing to wait that long, we're not going to schedule a surgery. We'll just basically do an examination and see where she's at. We'll do another MRI, we'll see where she's at, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do.
And what they did was they referred us to a hospital closer to us, which was...
Well, that was afterwards. That's afterwards.
Right.
So when we got to St. Jude, basically they did the MRI and they said, you know what, this is growing slower now. So we could potentially just wait for it to grow bigger again and then go in and try to get it all out. So we were like, yeah, okay, fine, we'll do that, because I just wanted to buy time.
And basically, the conclusion that
we were never going to let them. We were never going to let them do a third surgery.
The conclusion that St. Jude came to was they were okay waiting.
Right, which is good, because that's what I needed. I needed to buy time so I can get all this stuff out of her life so that we can show some improvement.
And that was when they referred us to Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, which is closer to us.
Right.
And they said you can just get your checkup MRIs there,
right,
more convenient for you. And that was, I eventually found out that I was in remission at that hospital.
Right. But they had no protocol, so they couldn't keep her as a patient. But you know what? Can I tell you, one of the things that I noticed was the weekend we were there, the week we were there, we wound up leaving with the board of directors. And I wanted to actually tell one of them that the food there was terrible in the cafeteria. You cannot be
The cafeteria was like a candy store.
Yeah, I mean, ice cream, chicken nuggets. There was no healthy food. None.
Right.
So like you couldn't find any even remotely healthy options. It was like fast food and candy.
Yeah. So
it's almost criminal. I mean,
and they don't realize.
People understand that they place no value on nutrition.
Right, which was mind-boggling to me. Absolutely mind-boggling. Now, it's like an amusement park. You know, the hospital is amazing. The way they treat you, the service is just amazing. The nurses are wonderful. The doctors are nice, and the facility is just amazing. But I couldn't help walk down those halls, and I was inside I was very upset because I could feel the pain of all the people, all the little kids that had died there. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what, my child is not going to be one of those. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I will move any mountain, but I will make sure my child lives. And
so the timeline.
That was November. That was November 2009.
When they said you could, start working with this local hospital.
No. That's when we went to St. Jude.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right. So then now, 3 months later, it's time for me to call and book the next flight down there. That was in January, and that's when they told me, no, Megan is no longer a patient at the hospital because we have no protocol to help her. So, because, for them, they need to be actively involved in either clinical trials or some kind of treatment. And they didn't feel this was treatment. They didn't feel
monitoring was not, yeah.
It's
that was January.
That was January 2010.
And when did you start the vegan diet?
That wasn't until August, the end of August.
2010?
Yeah. So
the tumor kept growing throughout 2009. Right. 2010.
Right.
And then you found Arnold and the vegan diet, and you jumped on that.
So for those months, it was bad. That's why I got so sick, because of the stress. Because basically I was telling myself I need to find a cure for cancer. And that's not really a realistic goal for most moms, So I was serious. Like, I was going to find a cure for cancer. My daughter was not going to die. I just felt like she was, she was meant to do things, and I just couldn't do it. I just could not see her.
Generally, we don't like for children to die.
Well, that's right.
Happy thing.
But for some reason, I don't know what it was. I mean, maybe it's because she's my daughter, but I always felt she was very special, and she was destined to make a difference in the world. And something inside me said, you've got to stop everything you're doing, and this has got to be the priority. And I knew, the thing about it was that I knew I could do it, where everybody else around me thought I was absolutely insane.
Well, me too. It's typical. You pretty much have to reject all the voices around you that disagree with what you're doing, because you are swimming upstream when you take control of your own health and when you radically change your diet and lifestyle. No one's going to understand except for the weirdos like me, and Arnold, right?
And no one really understood my diet and lifestyle changes until I started to seem so much healthier.
Yeah, they come around. That's what happens. People come around over time. Then they start to say, "Wait, maybe there's something. Maybe there is something to this."
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're still alive. Oh, it must work.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no cancer. Oh, you're still alive. Oh, you're healthy and strong and fit, and your skin looks amazing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is the diet.
And also, too, I mean, how many other kids do you know that can drop out of high school at 15 and go into a college setting and act like they're 20. And she was getting all the lead roles in all the shows, and she got nominated for awards.
Get all the lead.
She got lead roles, and she got nominated for those lead roles, and she won awards for those lead roles. You know what I mean? And she she wouldn't have been able to do that.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to do it if I was dead.
Well, this is true. But she wouldn't have been able to do it if she was leading a normal life, a normal American life.
And I couldn't have done it if I was stuck in hospitals,
right?
On chemotherapy and radiation.
Right.
No, there's absolutely no way. That's not living. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And I don't like drugs of any kind. Like I would never even take an aspirin. So the idea of having to take all this medication to deal with the symptoms of chemo, that really disturbed me. And also I found out later that chemo has the same acidity as car battery. So
battery acid?
A battery acid, right. So, could you imagine that, putting that into your body? That makes no sense. How is that improving your immune system?
Completely destroying your immune system.
Right, and it defies the laws of nature. And this is what I've come to learn, afterwards, that I was actually on the right track. I didn't realize how. Yeah.
Your instincts.
Right.
Your instincts were correct. And, so many people, in fact, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say most cancer patients instinctively do not want to do chemotherapy. They know they should not be doing it. They don't have a good feeling about it, but there's so much pressure from their doctors and friends and family that they agree to it anyway because everybody's telling them they have to do it. You know what I mean? And literally people will ignore their own gut instinct, their own intuition, their conscience, whatever you want to call it, and they'll do treatments, and usually they do not end well for most cancer patients.
That's true.
And I think it's because we're taught that when you get cancer, you have to fight it. You're now a cancer fighter. You're fighting cancer. It's a battle. You have to beat the cancer.
You don't have to.
And we're taught that chemotherapy is the best weapon in fighting cancer. And one of the things we learned was it doesn't have to be a fight.
No.
There are no winners and losers.
That's right.
Everybody wins. As long as you're healthy, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You don't have to, destroy the cancer. It's fine. When I first went on the raw vegan diet and was on a high-fat diet, I sort of expected the cancer to just disappear.
Right.
I'm like, what? I'm supposed to be beating the cancer. What's going on? And then I realized it's not about beating the cancer, destroying the cancer. My body created it, and as I become healthier, it will go away on its own time. I don't have to worry. As long as I'm healthy and I'm a perfectly functional human being, I don't have anything to worry about.
That's right.
And
the body created it, and the body can heal it. It's not something to be afraid of.
Exactly.
And even though my site is called Chris Beat Cancer, I completely agree with you. It's not about beating it. It's just about healing.
Right.
That's what it's about. It's about healing your body, restoring your health, healing your body. And those, fighting it, beating it are words that people recognize and understand.
Exactly.
But the reality and the truth is, I agree with you 100%. It's about healing the body.
Yeah.
So, Mom, this would probably be something good to close with. What would you say? I mean, you've already said so much that's been just absolutely fantastic, but I'm sure there are going to be some parents out there of children with cancer that are going to see this video. And what would you say, what would your advice be to them?
They have to use common sense. That's really what drove me. And in fact, so many people, I had one person ask me, where did you get your medical degree from? And I said to them, I may not have a medical degree, but I have something that the doctors don't, and that's common sense. Because I'm thinking about this logically. This is a business for them. This is not a business for me. So I looked at everything from the perspective of, does this make sense? And if it doesn't, why not? Cancer is a big business. So somebody has a lot to profit from it. So that's why they're not going to tell you. And not only that, they don't learn this stuff in school. They don't learn about nutrition. They don't feel nutrition is important. But you know what? You ask most oncologists, and they would never take chemo themselves if they had cancer, which is very interesting, because they know it doesn't work. But it makes a lot of money. But I think you just use common sense and you start questioning everything. You start reading. You know, sure, you found out about raw food. One of the things that I did, I basically put us in a cocoon. After Arnold, I didn't watch any YouTube videos. I didn't read any other books. Because you know what? Luckily, I didn't, because I found out later there's so many different camps in the raw food business, essentially.
Raw food movement.
Well, it's a business too. It's a business.
For some, it is a business.
For some, it's a business, right? You know, I found that if you start going and you start buying all these expensive things, I asked myself, why is that important? You know, usually the answer is right outside in your backyard. You can grow your own food, and you're supposed to be eating things that are, you know, supposed to be in your area anyway. You're not supposed to be shipping things 5,000 miles, you know. That's a whole other story. So basically, what I would tell people is just start reading, but don't get tied into one camp. Because most people, they wind up doing gourmet raw. That's how I started, but that is not sustainable. Because you have to ask yourself, can I sustain that in nature? That's really the key. So if I can grow it in my yard and I can sustain myself, then most likely that's going to work to cure me. And also, like, one of the things that I started to look into afterwards was herbs, which, you know, we didn't have to do with her, but although we did do some tinctures when you started, you know, getting a little symptomatic for shows and stuff, and we were afraid because she sings as well. So we did, you know, use some herbs to suppress cough and that kind of thing. You know, because
that would just be when the stresses of schools were starting to affect my immune system. Yeah. I would take some herbal supplements when necessary, and they helped me get back to where I needed to, because sometimes what would happen is I would get a little bit of a stuffy nose or a cough a couple days before I had a show. Right. And so I needed something to help fast.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, if I had more time, I may have looked more into herbs. Also, knowing what I know today, like we realized afterwards that we were following 80-10-10 principles. So right now, I would recommend a parent read 80-10-10, the book by Dr. Douglas Graham, because it certainly wouldn't hurt. But I think for me, the biggest book was the China study, because I needed to understand how animal protein works.
Yeah.
The China study and the 80-10-10 diet are two really influential books, because the China study teaches you about what animal protein really does to your body, and the 80-10-10 diet gives you a roadmap for a really sustainable way of eating that can heal your body.
Well, and also Diet for a New America was really good too, by John Robbins, because that taught me that animal protein, it's not just about your health. There's also two other things. There's the environment. I had no idea the impact that eating animals had on the environment.
Well, that was how we learned about the ethical and moral reasons, the ethical and environmental reasons for becoming a vegan.
Right, in addition to health. So we found out there were three different things. There was health, there was environment, and then there was the actual, you know, animals have feelings, they have families. We never thought about it like that. In fact, that's one of the things that Arnold said. You know, when you ate those eggs this morning, you ate some babies. You ate, you know, someone's babies. You know, they had a mother or father, you know, aunts, uncles. We never thought of it that way. And Megan's like, well, when this is all over, I'm going to eat more babies because I like those babies.
But in the process of changing my lifestyle, we became a lot more connected to our food and became much more conscious of what we were putting into our bodies and the impact it would have.
Yeah. Well, I think the big message too is, and I love that you said this, it does have to be simple and it has to be sustainable.
Right.
And what I did was different than what you did, but it was tons of juicing, lots of giant salads, lots of raw fruits and vegetables. I was working with a nutritionist that put me on some clean animal protein because of my body type, metabolic type, etc. But the point was, it was a diet that was largely raw fruits and vegetables, and it would fall in the China study standard of less than 20% animal protein or whatever. So it's still in line with that principle, but again, people just need to understand it does need to be simple, because there are a lot of talking heads promoting this is the best way, no, this way, and you have to constantly, you have to not fall into the dogma trap. And there's a lot of dogma out there, whether it's raw veganism or it's raw primal diet where they're only eating raw animal meat and that's all, you know, and always be open to new information, to learn and grow and discover and give your body what it needs. And that's, I mean, what you said, that's the great message.
Yeah.
It's just to continue to be open and to learn and not let yourself be influenced by one single voice. You know, when you absorb a lot of information, you can deduce from it what the, you know, the common threads are.
Also, I think it's really important. I always ask, what is this person? How does this person benefit?
Mm-hmm.
And so
from the information.
From the information, right. So, for instance, you know, if they're just selling a book, then that's not that big of a deal. But now, if they're selling a book and they have all these products that they're selling too, and
right,
you know,
if they're selling books and these fancy herbal powders,
and they also
you have to step back and
they
say,
have expensive
well, why?
seminars, you know, then you have to start questioning, like, okay, maybe they have a profit motive here. Like Arnold has a cafe. You know, he barely gets by. You know, he's not looking to get rich on this. He really cares about people, and you could see that. That was the thing.
In his cafe, he gives people free meals.
We were there
He's
4 hours. Mm-hmm. 4 hours.
He's all about educating people and giving them the information, not selling a product.
Exactly. But you know what? He has a store, so he does sell products, but he's not rich from that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because you have to walk into that store and want to buy a product. You'd have to have millions of people coming through that store for him to get rich. You know, and that's not happening. You know what I mean? Whereas on the internet, if you're trying to sell seminars and they're costing, you know, $10,000 or whatever, I don't know. I'm just making that number up.
Expensive seminar.
Well, I'm saying, I mean, I don't know. It could be a retreat or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you have to ask what's in it for them.
Right. And sometimes, you know what? Maybe it's the facilities. You know, they're very expensive. You know, whatever. I mean, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, like with chemotherapy, it is obvious that that's going to cost $100,000, and they're making big money. So right there's a huge profit motive. And so you've got to be very careful. Also, look at the commercials on TV. This is why I got rid of TV. They're trying to sell you something. If they're trying to sell you something, that means they're going to do whatever it takes to sell it to you. So you got to...
And most of those commercials are prescription drugs.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, it's true. Well, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Megan, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so great. I can't wait to get this out. And thank you, Maria, Mom,
thank you
for your perspective and your wisdom and sharing the story from your as the mom perspective. You know, this is going to help so many people, and I'm super excited about it. So, Megan, is there anything you want to close with?
Oh, what I just wanted to say was the thing that I always want to tell people is if you get a cancer diagnosis or someone you know gets a cancer diagnosis or any kind of not so great diagnosis, it's not the end of the world. There are always things you can do. You don't need to be afraid. Just learn all you can about natural healing methods, and you can turn your life around no matter what the situation. I thought what I had was too big to be healed by the raw food diet. I thought, I'm sure a raw diet can cure all kinds of things, but brain cancer, that's probably too much. And I learned that there's nothing your body can't reverse naturally if you give it the tools it needs. I'm excited just to see where your life takes you. You got a huge, fun future ahead of you for sure, especially in the next few months in Hawaii.
Big island. Yeah.
So, okay, well, again, this is Chris from Chris Beat Cancer. Lots of survivor stories there and on my YouTube channel. Lots of information on health and healing and how ineffective chemotherapy is. See ya.